10 years ago, Nigeria joined the global community in recognizing International Albinism Awareness Day. Since then, the country has made strides in promoting inclusivity and challenging harmful stereotypes. But there's still much work to be done.
Indeed, as we reflect on the progress made and the challenges in that terrain that remain, we bring together experts, advocates, and individuals living with albinism to share their stories, insights, and hopes for the future.
Now, from combating discrimination and stigma to promoting access to healthcare and education, we'll explore the issues that matter most.
All right, come along as we shine the light on the experiences of people with albinism in Nigeria and work together towards a society that values and embraces diversity in all its forms. We are now joined here in the studio by Jake Epele, who is Chief Executive Officer and Founder, the Albino Foundation Africa. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. 10 years on, what progress would you say have been made in this, in addressing the stigma and discrimination faced by people with albinism in Nigeria over, the time?
I think I'd like to go back, in the past, talk about the present going into the future. Before 10 years, we have been involved, and thanks to organizations like NTA, unknown to many people, it was actually staff of NTA, late Jibo and several other stars of those days that actually encouraged me to start the foundation. Augustina, Jibo, Ibn Mohammed. These were three people that I was on I think it's face-to-face or in those days. And after the interview, they said, look, so there's been a very strategic, very result-oriented advocacy. I was, to the glory of God, part of the team, the global team, that was on Action on Albinism, which is a UN system that gave birth to International Albinism Awareness Day. Though skeptics those days said, look, nobody's going to give you that, albinism is not known and all that. But we stood our ground, stayed committed, and here we are. So these 10 years has been 10 years of awareness, creating, getting the media to get involved. It's been 10 years of advocacy and legislation. Nigeria is the first country in the world to formulate the national policy on albinism, and which is the policy framework that is being used in many countries today, including the UN system. It's been 10 years of education and empowerment. We've seen the integration, the inclusion of persons with albinism into the education sector. As a matter of fact, it was the Federal Ministry of Education, and still the Federal Ministry of Education, that served as the focal ministry. There were 9 ministries. They serve as the focal ministry that formulated the national policy on albinism, and that policy has been reviewed the second time. And I think also, I'm sure that there is now a budget specifically for albinism in the Federal Ministry of Education.
Away from budget, for albinism, in terms of cultural and societal attitudes, where would you say we are now, in dealing with harmful stereotypes and superstitions?
There's been a reduction. I wouldn't say that we've arrived at a 100% threshold, but there's been a reduction. I remember growing up, I'm 63 now. I remember growing up when I started this 20 years ago. you can't walk on the street without children running after you and singing, or you go pepe, if you eat pepe, you go yellow more. So there's been a reduction. There's been a reduction in the name calling. There's all kinds of derogatory name across board that, we had to fight for. There's been a reduction in lack of awareness, The only thing that we're still battling with is the issue of skin cancer. As you know, I'm a skin cancer survivor, and so there are many persons with albinism that are dying of skin cancer, and they're dying in droves, because skin cancer is the greatest problem that persons with albinism are facing.
What are the experiences of people, with albinism in today's Nigerian workforce, and how can employers better support and include them, in your opinion?
I think very, very good question. The experiences, like I said, there's been a very below average reduction. Prior, before now, you have a situation where you can't get a job. Hardly can you get a job as a person with albinism. I remember my first job interview when I was interviewed, and the person told me to my face, "But look, I think you're smart enough to get this job, but I don't think you will be able to see. Therefore, we can't give you the job." That was the last time I ever went for any job interview. That instant discrimination propelled me to start fending for myself. So I went into business, did well, I can tell you that, and then left business because I knew that I was not created to do any other thing than what I'm doing right now. It was a hard cry. I wanted God to tell me why He created me. And at my 45th birthday, I heard God clearly say to me, "Go and help others like you, and that's why I created you." And that's how I started the then Albino Foundation. Of course, after a few years, we scaled up, and we decided to focus on disability in general. And I'll tell you why. One, at the time that I was championing the advocacy for albinism, I noticed that albinism was not a development issue, but disability has become a development issue. And I went into research to know what is it that is in albinism that has in an intersection with disability. Of course, our sight. I'm standing here, I'm not able to see you clearly. Many of you in NTA and several other are my friends. Conscience, for instance, she keep introducing herself all the time. Your DG, we're both fellows of NIPR. He had to introduce himself, So that's a major problem, and the glasses can't help us. Even though sometimes we wear,
So,
yeah.
So many challenges. You've talked about the health challenge, and then, of course, getting a job. Of course, education is also there as a challenge, and other kinds of issues that people with albinism face. What role do you think government can play, and policy that you would like to see that will promote inclusivity and also help in addressing some of these challenges?
Well, like I said, I'm privileged and humbled to be one of the first in the world that was involved in formulating the national policy on albinism. Nigeria is the first country in the world that formulated the national policy on albinism. And we captured whether it's education, health, social stigma, economic empowerment, all of that has been captured. Like I said, the Federal Ministry of Education, under the watchful eyes of the current minister and my sister, the permanent secretary, had worked with us to mainstream not only albinism but disability in their budget. Again, I've been part of about 7 policies in the country. The inclusive education policy, I was the first chairman of the inclusive education policy, and then we also, my organization funded through Site Savers, funded the review of the current inclusive education policy. Now the strategy is to be there when holistic social issues are discussed, so that I can mainstream not only albinism but disability. So government, I would say, had given us access to come up with whatever that will serve as an intervention. Where the rubber meets the road sometimes is in implementation. But there is no doubt what we're doing is a progressive development issue. So we'll keep pushing, keep mainstreaming, keep demanding for practical solution and application. So where we are coming from, there's been a huge progress, but there's a whole lot more to be done.
And as you continue this whole lot that needs to be done, how can we strike a balance between the need for awareness and education with the need to protect the privacy and security of individuals with albinism?
Well, everything is in the open now, but for instance, in our organization, we're very, very, very focused on data protection. You probably may know that we do work with INEC in manning data for not just for persons with albinism, but for persons with disability. It's interesting to note here, and that's what, I'm not trying to blow my trumpet, but that's what good strategic advocacy can produce. In terms of political participation, when we started the project in making sure that persons with disability in general are given space in the political realm, we have seen till date that every time issue of data comes up in INEC and all that, the persons with albinism is always in the lead in the whole spectrum of disability participation. Persons with albinism, the data are there. I'm not just making up things. Anybody can see if you go to INEC, and so in terms of managing data, like you rightly asked, we are very, very conscious of that, and we put everything in place to ensure that nobody will have access to the privacy of an individual who had given us information. We do not share information with anybody. On Monday, a group is coming to donate sunscreen to a few members of the albinism community in Abuja. And I was very, very particular and upfront with them. You can do whatever you want to do. You can only get the information of any individual when they sign the consent with you that you can have that information. So we're very, very hands-on on data and privacy protection.
Beautiful. 10 years down the line already, looking ahead now, what are the key priorities and goals for the albinism community?
Well, going forward, like I told you, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm 63. By the way, I look good at 63, don't I?
Of course.
Yeah, so what I did was I created a parallel organization called Albinism Association of Nigeria, and led for just 6 months, resigned, and the reason is that I know that age is on my side. So I wanted younger ones to, like I always said, I don't want people to take over from me at my funeral. I want to be alive and hand over. So I handed over to the current acting president, Lucy, and I think she's doing a good job. And so what we've done is to create a legacy pathway for the albinism community. We are focused also on getting them educated. Again, my relationship with NTA and some of the things that we've done, we've been able to send a number of them to school. And my greatest success story is Oluchi Iwa, that we were able to get grants sent her to Aberdeen University. She came back with a master's degree, and she's gone back to do a second master's in the UK. And, you know, in terms of political participation, today we have persons with albinism elected, not selected. We have one in the National Assembly, or no, sorry, State Assembly of Ilorin, Kwara, and several of them across board. Now, my strategy as a head of my organization is to push not only persons with albinism, but persons with disability. And we've tested the water. Many of them wanted to go to House of Rep, governors and all that. And I said to them, listen, let us grow from the bottom top, you know. And so our focus now is to push them into the local government election space and let them become local government chairman and grow. Leadership is bottom top. You know, you don't just emerge at the top overnight. You know, you need to have experience. And so many of them are contesting for local government chairman, councillors, and all that. And we have become I am very passionate about the local government elections. As of today, we are working with about 6 states because we've developed a framework for inclusion. By next week, I'll be in Delta. Delta is doing their local government election. So, and Dr. Jerry, who is the chairman of Delta Independent Electoral Commission, had given us unfettered access. He wants to see inclusion. You know, not only did they wrote officially. We're working with Sokoto State. We're working with Plateau, the governor, Governor Caleb. His Excellency is a good friend. And so we're going around the country providing the enabling environment and the framework for electoral participation, not only for persons with albinism, but for the community of persons with disability.
But could you point at a major challenge for women living with albinism, away from all the challenges you've mentioned, that is particular to women with this condition? I
know you asked that, and you're rightly so. Yes, the greatest problem with women with albinism is more of relational issues, relationship, getting married. For me, education. But let me talk about relational issues. Many of them truly are very compassionate, loving, very beautiful. But just like men, although it's more on women, many families don't want husband that wants to marry them to marry them. It happens with us too as men, but I think it's more on the women's side. So they struggle relationally. Even women that don't have albinism, that gave birth to children with albinism, they have huge issues, you know. So there are relational issues, complete abuse and neglect. This syndrome of, oh, I want to test you first before I marry you, happens not only for persons with albinism, but across board, persons with disability. You know, they violate them and oftentimes leave them without a continuation of that relationship. I've had calls by midnight, some of them. There was one in this Abuja that wanted to commit suicide at 2 a.m. And we reached out to her, began to talk to her. Then she had this husband that felt that, oh, I'm just doing you a favor. Look at you. You're a person with albinism. Who would have married you? You understand? Which is always virtually a reason across board. You know, someone may watch and say, oh, it doesn't happen to me. The fact that it doesn't happen to you does not mean it doesn't happen to others. I've been in this space for 20 years and I document stories, And so we've had several stories of abuse, neglect, several stories of parents not wanting to send them to school, not only the women folks, but generally. Several stories of women giving birth to persons with albinism and hiding them in the house, not wanting people to know. Several stories of parents rejecting their children and say, look, you've caused me an embarrassment. I don't want you in my life. I'm telling you real life stories. And so what are we doing to mitigate these issues? Well, awareness, two, engagement. We engage with the family, we engage with husbands. I've had to fight some husbands, and many of them has also threatened me. You understand? But
Right.
I don't care.
Because of time, would have to leave the conversation there. But just in 10 seconds, I'd like you to respond to the fact that you already mentioned that people who have albinism face certain challenges like their sight and all of that. So if they get positions like in politics, what is the probability that they would be able to deliver?
Oh yeah, there are many of us who are essays in this current dispensation.
So they're able to live.
Oh yes,
and deliver
project,
beyond the challenge.
We do have a project called Able to Serve. Albinism is part of it. We not only recommend for them to be appointed, we also train them on how to make sure they leave a legacy in the appointment, and then we follow up with monitoring and evaluation, seeing that they do well. And where they don't do well, we don't fail to recall them. We ask, look, leave the space.
All right, thank you very much, Jacob Haley, Chief Executive Officer and founder of the Albino Foundation Africa, for joining us for the conversation this morning. Wish you the very best, and of course, seeing that some of these challenges are overcome. Thank you.
Thank you. My gratitude to your DG for all that he does for us. Thank you.
And I hope you recognize him the next time.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I will.
All right, so that's Good Morning Nigeria. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ian John. Have a great weekend.
Well, I'm Victor as well. Enjoy your weekend.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used